Have you ever felt like your life wasn't quite your own?
Like maybe you were living out someone else's expectations, perhaps.
Exactly. Like your identity was less about who you truly are and more about fulfilling someone else's, I don't know, dream.
Yeah.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into an incredibly raw and insightful narrative from one of your sources that lays bare this very experience.
It's a truly remarkable account, really honest. It gives this unfiltered look at a very complex, often tumultuous relationship between a child star and her mother.
All set against that Hollywood backdrop, which adds another layer.
Absolutely, the demanding landscape of Hollywood. And our mission today, really, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this incredible material.
Not just the story itself.
No, but the insights.
Yeah.
To understand the layers of influence, expectation, and then that eventual really arduous journey to self-discovery.
So this deep dive is going to be your shortcut to understanding how identity is forged and sometimes painstakingly reclaimed under, well, pretty unconventional circumstances.
Get ready for some surprising facts, I think, and some really profound insights along the way.
The foundations of a life-early family and the mother's dream.
Okay, let's dive into this childhood. Reflecting on the material you shared, it paints such a vivid picture of the early family dynamics.
Right.
You get this distinct cast of characters. There's the grandpa constantly taking pictures, right?
Mm-hmm. And the ice cream?
Oh, yeah, the heaping bowl of Tillamook vanilla bean ice cream every night, even with a failing heart.
Yeah.
Then the dad, who seems perpetually half asleep or caught in that thyroid's fine loop or...
Or the all-out scream fight with mom.
Exactly. And the brothers, you've got responsible Marcus, artistic Dustin, and nostalgic Scotty, the one who cries at the end of every holiday.
These details, they aren't just color, are they?
No, they feel significant. They shaped a really potent emotional landscape, it seems.
Absolutely. These specific, almost, quirky details, they're crucial. They immediately set up this household filled with strong, often conflicting personalities.
And for a child navigating that.
Well, it necessitates this heightened sense of observation, adaptation. You see the narrator, even really young, learning to sort of navigate and internalize these dynamics.
Which could, predispose her to performing later?
It can subtly do that, yeah. Predispose a child to performative roles, both inside the family and out. It's like this training ground for reading a room, responding to external cues, rather than, developing your own internal compass first.
And then there's mom, described as beautiful, but spending an hour doing her hair and makeup every day, even just for a grocery run.
Mm-hmm.
Yearning to be 5'2", but she's 4'11". She sounds like someone really wrestling with her own image.
That's incredibly telling, isn't it? The visible effort to construct an image, even for just mundane tasks.
It's not just vanity.
No, I think it points to profound internal struggle, self-perception, maybe a yearning for some idealized self she couldn't reach.
And that trickles down.
Often, yes. When a parent shows that level of preoccupation with external appearance, especially achieving an ideal that's physically impossible, it sends a message. It teaches a child implicitly that who you are isn't quite enough. That value is tied to a manufactured image or some unachievable standard.
Which leads us right to this pivotal moment. The source makes it crystal clear this wasn't the narrator's choice at all.
Right.
Mom's doing her hair and just declares, I want to give you the life I never had. I think you should act.
And the reasoning.
Blonde. Blue-eyed. You're what they love in that town, Hollywood. Just like that.
Wow. So, what are the deeper psychological ramifications when a parent projects their own unfulfilled dreams onto a child so explicitly?
It feels huge.
It is. It's more than just a suggestion. It's like an imposition of destiny, especially when it's backed up with that phrase, there's only one right answer, when she asks, you want to be mommy's little actress.
That just chills you. No agency.
Exactly. It fundamentally undermines a child's developing sense of self, their autonomy. The fallout can be really long-lasting.
Like what?
Well, a child learns their worth is conditional. It depends on fulfilling the parent's dream. This often leads to a kind of fragmented identity where the authentic self gets suppressed.
And later in life.
It can show up as difficulty with self-worth, setting boundaries, even just knowing what you actually want. Because that foundational inner voice, it was silenced so early on, it really sets you up to seek external validation instead of building internal resilience.
The performance of self, from crying on cue to Garbage Grove.
So This foundation of pressure, it immediately translates into these early acting experiences. And they sound like this really jarring mix of confusion and just this intense drive to please mom.
Yeah, the pressure's on.
I mean, performing a monologue about jello jigglers, high-pitched and cutesy, with a little nose wrinkle at the tail end.
Right. Performing cuteness.
And then the first big break, literally suffocating to death in a close-up on The X-Files. It sounds like the demands for performance were just immediate and kind of all-encompassing.
Indeed. These little anecdotes, they highlight how quickly she was immersed in this world where her emotional state wasn't really her own. It was a tool.
A tool for performance.
Exactly. And the most striking special skill demanded. Crying on cue. And how she was taught to do it. Instructed to imagine increasingly tragic things. Her brothers dying of specific illnesses. Her grandpa dying.
That's horrifying. It's emotional exploitation.
It's more than that even. It's actively training a child to dissociate from their true feelings, turning their deepest fears into, like, a marketable skill.
The long-term consequences of that must be immense.
Profound.
Yeah.
It can lead to a lifelong struggle with emotional authenticity, maybe difficulty even recognizing genuine emotions in yourself or others, possibly even a performative approach to relationships later on, where the appearance of emotion matters more than the internal truth.
And the contrast between this professional demand for perfect performance and her home life, it's stark.
Extremely.
The source calls Garden Grove Garbage Grove. It paints this picture of extreme hoarding.
Yeah.
The garage filled floor to ceiling with stuff, dead rats and possums and traps, a broken garage door needing 2 people like an Indiana Jones escape.
It sounds chaotic.
And the family sleeping on Costco mats because the bedrooms were just unusable.
This environment, it just speaks volumes about that general air in the McCurdy household, described as a held breath.
A held breath, waiting for something bad.
Waiting for mom's cancer to return, primarily. But hoarding itself, it's often a coping mechanism, isn't it? For underlying psychological distress, a desperate attempt to control something when life feels out of control.
So for a child living in that chaos,
It creates constant chronic stress, insecurity, the held breath atmosphere, the physical disorder. It breeds trauma responses.
feel like hypervigilance.
Hypervigilance, difficulty feeling safe, just this profound sense of instability. The home, which should be a sanctuary, it becomes another source of anxiety, another stage for just managing chaos.
And the mother's role in that held breath atmosphere seems really central.
Palpable, yes.
Her repeated retelling of her stage 4 cancer story, the weekly home video rewatches,
The videos.
and labeling the narrator as a 2-year-old a stinker for singing Jingle Bells during her diagnosis phone call, it created such a guilt-ridden environment.
It really did.
Her birthday wish says it all. I wish that mom will stay alive another year.
That phrase, a held breath, it just perfectly captures that chronic stress. And when a parent weaponizes their illness, especially against a child, it's a profound form of emotional abuse.
The child becomes the caretaker.
An emotional caretaker, yeah. Burdened with guilt that isn't theirs. It teaches a child that their own joy, their own existence even, is secondary to the parent's suffering.
And expressing your own self feels like a threat.
It can, yeah. A threat to the parent's well-being. This can lead to lifelong patterns of self-sacrifice, people-pleasing, and inability to prioritize your own needs without feeling just immense guilt. It's a powerful example of how parental emotional needs can just overwhelm and distort a child's development.
Control, body image, and the cracks in the facade.
The mother's control then takes this, well, even more insidious turn. Calorie restrictions starting at age 11.
Right.
And it wasn't just about weight, was it? It was explicitly about how to stay small.
Delay adulthood.
Yeah, for acting roles. That feels like such a deeply personal and pervasive form of control, tying a child's physical development directly to her career and her worth.
It's a critical turning point, and it's a classic example of how control over food becomes a proxy for control over life itself.
And it connects to the mother's own issues.
Directly. Her own history of body image struggles, hearing as a child that anything I ate turned to fat. So when she instills this fear in her daughter and makes calorie restriction a shared mission,
It creates a bond.
an intense bond, yes, but an incredibly unhealthy one. It normalizes disordered eating. It externalizes the child's body image, making it about pleasing others, mom, the industry, not about self-care or healthy development.
The long-term impact.
Profound, lasting struggles. Body dysmorphia, eating disorders, a distorted sense of self-worth tied directly to appearance and weight. It fundamentally messes with your relationship with your own body.
And then on top of that, the physical exams.
Yeah, those were deeply uncomfortable to read about.
Until age 17, mom performing breast and front butt exams under the guise of checking for cancer.
While the narrator mentally escapes to Fantasyland.
That detail, Fantasyland, says so much.
It does. And the term front butt, which the narrator uses for her pubic area, it highlights the euphemistic, infantilizing nature of these incredibly invasive checks.
It's a total violation of boundaries.
A complete lack of physical boundaries, framed as protection. It just further illustrates the mother's pervasive control over her daughter's body, her burgeoning sexuality. It's a stark example of how a child's agency, their personal space, can be systematically undermined, violated, all under the guise of maternal care.
Leaving lasting psychological scars.
Absolutely. That escape to Fantasyland. It's a classic dissociative coping mechanism. The mind protecting itself when the body can't physically escape something overwhelming, traumatic.
It's easy to just see these actions as purely malicious, right? But is there any room to understand the mother's actions as maybe misguided love, stemming from her own trauma or fears? Or is that just making excuses?
That's a really crucial question, because human behavior is rarely just one thing. We can acknowledge that the mother herself might have been shaped by her own trauma, societal pressures about appearance, a deep fear of illness.
So understanding the roots.
Understanding the roots doesn't diminish the impact. It doesn't absolve the actions of being harmful. It's complex. Her fear of losing her daughter, maybe to cancer or just to growing up, might have been genuine in a way.
But her method?
Her coping mechanisms, her projection, they created an environment of profound abuse and control. So we can hold both truths, I think. She might have been driven by her own pain, but that pain manifested in ways that systematically damaged her daughter's well-being and sense of self. It really highlights how these cycles of trauma can just keep going, even when tensions might be, mixed or misguided.
As her career progresses, especially with iCarly, she starts seeing the industry's harsh realities more clearly, too.
Right, the disillusionment sets in.
There's this palpable resentment towards her co-star, Ariana Grande, her seemingly easier path, both upbringing and career-wise. The narrator feels like the good sport, forced to turn down opportunities because the show wouldn't write me out of episodes, while Grande could pursue music.
That good sport persona again.
Yeah, and she describes her own life as cemented in people's minds as the person I was when I was a kid. Stuck.
This reveals that profound internal conflict, doesn't it? That good sport role, once maybe a source of pride instilled by her mother, it becomes this heavy burden, a cage.
The industry demanding the same conformity.
Exactly. Like mother, like industry, demanding conformity and availability. And the contrast with Ariana Grande, it highlights the systemic inequities, the pressures within Hollywood. Some people just seem to get more agency, more options.
And feeling cemented.
It's not just about fame. It speaks to that huge challenge many child stars face, evolving beyond how the public first knew you. It's a struggle for narrative control.
Compounded by that hush money offer.
Yeah, the reported offer of $300,000 to never talk publicly about your experience at Nickelodeon. That just underscores the industry's silencing tactics, doesn't it? Reinforces those feelings of being trapped, exploited.
The reckoning truth, therapy, and reclaiming self.
So eventually the cracks in this whole carefully constructed foundation, they just shatter. Two huge revelations.
Monumental one.
First, discovering her biological father wasn't who she thought, a fundamental piece of her identity, kept secret by her mother, even on her deathbed.
Leaving, as she says, more questions than answers, more pain than healing.
That kind of secret.
It forces a complete, painful reevaluation of your entire life's narrative. Discovering such a profound deception from the person who is supposed to be your center of truth, it's often called a shattering of assumptions.
And it leaves her to see her mother differently.
Radically differently. She ultimately describes her mother as a narcissist, someone who refused to admit she had any problems, making that pedestal she'd been on completely undeserved.
And for our listeners, narcissist here implies.
Generally, it refers to someone with an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for excessive attention, admiration, often troubled relationships, and a real lack of empathy. In this narrative, you see it in the mother's inability to acknowledge her own flaws or the incredibly damaging impact of her actions.
What's it like being raised by someone like that?
Often, it means the child learns to suppress their own needs, their own identity, just to cater to the parent's fragile ego. This can lead to really deep-seated issues with self-worth, trust, emotional regulation down the line.
So, faced with all this overwhelming grief, the truth about her father, grappling with bulimia and alcohol abuse as coping mechanisms, She finally starts therapy.
which is a huge step.
But she was resistant at first, right, clinging to that narrative that mom was perfect.
Yeah, fearing that dethroning her mother would mean destroying her own identity, which she felt was essential to my survival.
That fear sounds so real.
It is. That initial resistance in therapy, it's incredibly common with deep-seated trauma, especially when a child's identity has been so tangled up with a parent, even an abusive one.
Why is it so threatening?
Because when your entire worldview, your sense of self, has been dictated by someone else for so long, challenging that foundation feels like an existential crisis. It feels like you might actually fall apart.
So recovery isn't just about stopping the bulimia or the drinking.
No, not at all. It's about painstakingly dismantling that core identity built on well, a false foundation, and then bravely, meticulously rebuilding an authentic one from the ground up.
Which raises that powerful question for anyone listening. How do you rebuild your entire life, your point of view, when it's been dictated by someone else's wants and needs for so long?
It's a daunting process.
But the source shows this slow, arduous path forward. Confronting the eating disorders, learning to actually feel this confusing, overwhelming blob of emotions, as she puts it, instead of purging.
That choice to feel
Yeah.
is incredibly brave, moving away from dissociation from self-medication.
She discards her scale, recognizes her worth isn't a number.
Huge symbolic and practical steps, reclaiming her body, her self-worth from that external validation system.
And she finds love, support, even navigating the complexities of her partner Stephen's own mental health and religious shifts. It sounds like a journey of really active choice, self-awareness.
Indeed. And that culminates, doesn't it, in her decision to refuse the iCarly reboot.
Despite the really good money.
That signifies such a monumental personal victory. Her declaration, my mental health and happiness fall into that category, the category of things more important than money or external expectations.
That's powerful.
It represents the ultimate act of self-preservation, the reclamation of her own narrative. It's this inspiring example of choosing authenticity,
Right.
choosing well-being over external validation, and those old definitions imposed by family, by the industry, finally defining success on her own terms. Outro.
Yeah, and what an extraordinary journey this deep dive has really revealed.
It truly is.
From a childhood just steeped in someone else's dreams, strict control, through that demanding, often toxic world of child stardom,
Right.
to this profound and really hard-won personal awakening.
This narrative, it powerfully illustrates the immense weight of the stories we're told about ourselves, and maybe even more, the ones we then tell ourselves.
Yeah.
The process of unlearning those deeply ingrained patterns, confronting abuse, painstakingly redefining your identity, it's just a testament to incredible resilience.
And it reminds you that healing isn't like a final destination.
Exactly. It's
Yes.
a conscious, continuous choice,
Yeah.
an active engagement with our true selves.
So for you, our listener, what stands out most from this story? The story of self-discovery, of truth-telling. How does it maybe resonate with your own experiences, defining who you are versus who you were perhaps expected to be?
And maybe consider this provocative thought to leave you with. The narrator states she never wanted fame and felt cemented in people's minds as the person I was when I was a kid.
Stuck in that image.
Right. So how might your perception of other people, or even of yourself, be subtly shaped by incomplete narratives, by those early impressions? And what might it take to really challenge those long-held beliefs, to try and see the authentic person underneath?
Something powerful to mull over until our next deep dive.